Hello again, it's Miss Dow here. We are ready to start our new project. So if you're watching this, you've already read our story or listened to me read it to you, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. And we're looking at how we would like to show and illustrate our tree and our name, okay? So we're gonna kind of use that same concept. We're gonna be practicing our cutting skills and some of our drawing skills. And we're gonna start looking at space. We're going to start looking at near and far and how do artists arrange space in their artwork. All right, so first, let's take a quick overview in Canvas. I, as always, have a review of it in the processing activity. Okay, so to plan, we're going to start off. You're going to draw out your ideas. Right here. So plan your project. You can decide what colors you want to use and where you want to put your tree, where you're going to put your letters. Okay. And then it's a little bit hard to see. We're going to do a horizon line and a foreground. We're going to color it in with crayons, with construction paper crayons. Then we're going to start practicing our cutting with scissors again. And we're going to glue it together to build our tree. Do the leaves, and then we'll add some details, and then we add our letters. Okay, so that's just a quick overview. So now I will demonstrate. Now, boys and girls, we may not watch this whole video in one class. I may just show part of it to you and then show other parts later. But to get started, I will show you. Let's talk about. Sorry, I had to stop talking while I was trying to think about that. So we're going to talk about near and far. So a horizon line is something that we often find in an outside picture or a landscape. We call it a landscape. So a horizon line is where the sky comes down to meet the ground. We don't always think of the sky as touching the ground because when we think of sky, we think of the blue sky, right? Or the nighttime sky. But the sky really is air, it's the atmosphere, and it comes all the way down to the ground. Okay, so depending on where you are and what you're looking at, that will be something different. And usually it depicts what's far away from us in the picture. Now, this of course is just flat and it's really actually all the same distance, right? But I think I have my other one here. So if I get this one out, the one that I created, okay, the example you saw, this right here is far away and the tree is closer to us. It appears closer to us in the picture because it's so big and close to us, right? And it's close to the bottom of the paper. Whereas it looks like the land is starting to go away from us. Okay, now usually, and not always, but usually, the ground that goes away from us is lighter in color or faded because we can't see it as well because it's so far away. So let's start with that. We're going to start with our horizon line. So I'm going to do non-realistic colors with this one. I'm going to make it more of an imaginary place. So this is something that you can do as well. I'm going to use some pinks and purples for my picture. I'm going to use the lighter pink to do my horizon line. I think for this one, I think I might make just a straight line this time. You saw in the other one, I did hills. This one, I think, actually, I'm going to do some mountains. I'm not going to do straight. So I'm going to use a zigzag line to show my mountains. Now that's going to show my horizon line. This is all sky. And below that line is all ground. It's not the same ground. Those mountains are far away. So I'm going to show another line, two lines actually in this one to show the other areas of ground. So there's a middle ground. So my first graders, I want you to include this middle ground. I didn't include it on the first one. So I would have an example for kindergartners. Kindergartners, you're going to be learning foreground, middle ground, and background, but I really want you to focus on foreground and middle ground. All right, and so we'll talk about that more and more. Those are new words for you. So your foreground, I'm gonna do with my darker color. All right, there it is. Now my middle ground, I'm probably gonna do the same color as the background. I'll tell you why in a little bit. Okay, now when I color these, I'm gonna color these a lighter color and then get a little darker, maybe even mix a little bit with this color, and then color the foreground the darker color. So I don't want to spend time on the video coloring the whole thing. I'm just going to show you a couple of spots. So when you press lightly, okay, I'm pressing softly and I'm coloring my mountain, you can see it's a lighter color. Now the construction paper crayons are nice because they're a little bit softer and brighter on the colored paper. So I would just color neatly inside my lines. Notice how I'm doing short, smaller strokes. I can go fast, but I'm gonna go short strokes. I'm not going like this because that would be scribbling and I probably would go out of my lines. It's really hard to control where the crayon goes if I'm doing big strokes or going too fast, okay? So I would continue coloring all the way down. Now, this area, I'd like it to be a little bit darker. So I'm gonna press a little bit harder. Okay, so you can see I'm pressing harder. You can see how still doing short strokes, making sure I'm covering the blue paper. I don't wanna see blue on my ground. So even though it's not a realistic picture, you still don't want it to be the same color as the sky. Okay, so you can see how that color is different, right? And then so of course I would color that whole thing. And then my foreground is gonna be this darker color because it's close. And I want it to appear close in more detail, brighter than my other areas. So I'm pressing hard. I can make some variations if I want to. You want to show some areas like some differentiation, variation. You could do some areas that are a little bit dark and then you could do lighter. As long as you colored in, it's okay with you have those little speckles, right? You just don't want to have any spaces like, you know, bigger spaces like that, right? You want to color that in. You don't want to see that big spaces of the blue paper. Okay, so I have my foreground, I have my middle ground, and the background with my horizon line showing far away. So that's step number 1, boys and girls. That's step number 1. Okay, so we'll probably do that much in one day. And then the next day, we're ready to start doing some cutting for our tree. Now you can design your tree with details and variation of how you choose. I am going to make mine purple. Okay, this is actually purple paper. It doesn't really look purple on the screen, but it is. So we're going to do some squares or rectangles to make your tree, the trunk of the tree. So a way to do that so that you don't have to cut out all of them is use an edge of the paper that you already have. So I might think, all right, I'm gonna cut a strip of paper like this, as straight as I can. Notice how I'm holding my hand and holding the scissors. I'm cutting away from my fingers. My fingers are not near the blade. And my thumb is pointing up, okay, towards the ceiling. All right, so once I have my strip cut out, now cut a little crooked, that's okay, because trees aren't perfectly straight. I can cut rectangles or squares from my piece. Like that, right? And then you can glue them down. So you get your glue sponge. Oh, it didn't absorb all the way in there, it looks like. I had to put glue in it last night, thought it would absorb, but it must put too much in. So you'll put it in there. I'm gonna have to be careful. I got too much glue. I'll fix that later. Oh, there's a chunk of glue. That's why. It must have been old glue that I had here at my house. All right, so you guys know how to do this though, right? We just did this with our stained glass our projects. Lay it on the sponge, press it all around, and then glue it on. And of course, I haven't finished coloring, so I'm not gonna glue all of those at this time, okay? So I'm just gonna leave that there. This is just demonstration. I would glue them all how I want them. Now, here's the thing you gotta decide. Is your tree leaning over? Is it when the letters are about to fall to the ground? Is it at the beginning of the story? When is it? And do you want it in the middle? Do you want it to the side? Where is your tree in there? Okay, so you can decide that, where you want it to be. Maybe some of them blew off. All right, and so then you would glue all your pieces down to make the trunk of the tree. So you could space them out. It's sticking to my fingers, the glue already. I rub them together. Get rid of that glue. All right. If you want to lean it over, that's why we're doing shapes, right? You see that? So by doing the rectangles or the squares, we can gradually make them lean over. Okay, so you can choose how much you want to lean over. Is it about to fall or not? All right, once you finish the trunk, then it's time to do the leaves. So I have some pinks. I have 3 different pinks. I went through my scrap paper and I found 3 different pinks to make my leaves. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw the leaf on one and then I'm gonna use it to cut out the rest of them. So I'm gonna draw one first. I'm gonna start with the shape of a football. You know what? Actually, no, I'm thinking about, no, I'm not. I'm gonna make it, since I'm not doing a realistic colors, I don't wanna do a realistic leaf. You can do realistic leaves like I did in the first one. Okay, or on this one, maybe I make some hearts for leaves. I'm gonna draw my heart. So you can do a different shape. All right, now I'm gonna cut out 2 or 3 at a time. So I'm gonna take the corners of these papers like this, and I'm gonna put them together. And I'm gonna hold it tight. Now, if 3 is too many, maybe try doing 2 at one time. Hold it tight in one hand and then cut on your line. And you'll have 3 or 2 at the same time, which will save you time. And this is called working efficiently. Now, if this is too hard for you to hold them together, you can just do 1 at a time, but I'm trying to get you to start building those muscles in those fingers. Okay, so holding these together by pressing hard, you're starting to press and build muscle in your fingers. Okay, so now I have some leaves. Okay, I'm probably going to cut out a few more. 3 leaves is not enough. If you looked at my first one, I had 9. Okay, I think that's a good number, 9 leaves. So I'll cut out some more, okay? Not right now, but I would do it later. And then I have a different purple for some coconuts. So once again, I will cut out some circles for my coconut. Or you can cut out a different shape. And then you can glue those onto the leaves. And then the last step, boys and girls, well, 2 things actually. You can add details. Like in the first one, I made little blades of grass. Okay, whoops. You can add little blades of grass. Or you can add more grass along here or whatever, flowers. You can add flowers to your scene. Okay, you can cut them out and put them on there. Same thing, right? The same way, just cut out 1 shape at a time and then glue them together. When it's all done, then you can add your letters. So I could take a totally different color. I want my color to show, I want it to pop out. So I could then come in here and make my letters. Maybe I do them this time. Maybe I do Rebecca, right? There's an R. Maybe I can turn them different ways. I can do the E. R, whoops, B, whoops, oops, I'm spelling my name wrong. How can I fix that? I'm going to turn it into a B. There we go. See that? So when you make a mistake, boys and girls, part of art is learning how to not get upset, but be able to say, okay, I made a mistake. How can I turn it into something else? Right? Or how can I fix it? So I was able to fix it. If I couldn't turn it into a B, maybe I would turn it into a bug or something that else was on the tree. And then I would continue my letters below it. Okay. And I would add the rest of my letters and I'll just keep going. Okay. So that would be the last step. All right. So now we will turn off the video and you can ask questions if you have questions. All right. Happy creating.